Hi, everybody. My name is Kyle Dine. I'm the CEO and founder of Equal Eats, and just wanted to welcome you to our Q&A session today on flying with food allergies, tips and strategies from experts, and your questions answered. We're going to try to cover as much as possible during this hour-long session, and I'm just absolutely thrilled to be joined by an all-star panel here with Julianne Ponen from Creative Nature and Dr. Francesca Sawyer, an allergy psychologist. So I'm going to get going here. And just to lay the table, our agenda today, I'm going to introduce everybody. We're going to get into some facts and stats about this issue. And then Julianne and Dr. Sawyer are going to get into their specific presentations. And then we're going to open it up to questions where we're going to answer as many as possible at the end. And then we'll just detail at the end, why is all of this worth it? Why do we fly? Why do we seek this adventure despite all of the different preparation and challenges that we face with allergies? Before we go further, though, I really just wanted to start with a poll just to find out who is here. So to start off with, here's a first poll question for you. Who's here? Are you a parent or a caregiver of a child with food allergies or an individual with food allergies? All right, 3, 2, 1. Just nice to know. And look at this, it is an exact 50-50 split. So welcome parents and welcome individuals. Everybody is welcome here, and there's going to be a little bit of something for everybody. The next one is, have you traveled on an airplane while managing food allergies, whether that's yours or a child? Yes or no? Just to know how experienced we are. So yes or not yet. And I will launch this. And wow, many of us have launched ourselves into the sky with 88% have traveled before via airplane managing food allergies. Okay, so we have a lot of experiences here. Hopefully most are good. We will find out. And I will ask one more question and then we'll get into it. Nope, that one's not going to launch. All right. There's always an issue with one poll, but we got pretty far at least. So I want to just introduce myself. I have food allergies myself to peanuts, tree nuts, egg, fish, shellfish, and mustard is the one that's up and coming. I have traveled to, I don't count the countries, but a whole bunch now, all over the world. I'm currently in Slovenia in my little music parlor here. And for me, travel is essential. I love it. I was a real homebody when I was growing up, and now I get to travel the world. I've become a lot more comfortable navigating with my food allergies. Equal Eats is a company I founded to help people travel safely by creating translation cards in 58 different languages where you can use those at restaurants and help convey effectively your allergies all across the globe. Also delighted to be joined by Karina Montagni, our marketing manager. Hey, Karina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Karina. As Kyle said, I'm the marketing manager at Equal Eats. I have a son who's 12 years old and he has multiple food allergies, and that's what brings me to this community. It's great to be here today. Thank you.
Next, we have Julianne Ponan, MBE, who's the founder and CEO of Creative Nature. If you haven't heard of the brand, it's just fantastic, and I know that they're growing increasingly and getting into airlines as well. And it's one of my favorite safest snacks out there. Her bio is extensive. There's a lot there that you've done, a lot of awards, including King's New Year honors, Forbes 30 under 30. I could go on and on, but do you want to just say hello and do a quick intro yourself?
Hi everyone. Honestly, so excited and honored to be here with you, Kyle, with Francesca. Just honestly, this community is incredible. I'm Julianne. If you don't know me, please do connect with me on Instagram or wherever you can. I have severe allergies myself. I've had them since I was 2 years old, and I'm all about trying to make people live with their allergies and not having to make it define them and being able to give them that freedom. Yes, I started a brand that makes everyone be able to eat around the same table as well. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here and I hope you enjoy the content that we're going to put out there.
We're thrilled to have you. And I didn't know what logo to put under Dr. Francesca Sawyer, so I tried to get expert icon because we're absolutely just really, really delighted to be having someone that has this psychological background on food allergy and anxiety and all of these different emotions that come along with managing this condition and adding risk and stress. So Dr. Francesca Sawyer has 14 years experience working in NHS, um, is an absolute rock star of our community. If you are in the UK, you've probably heard of her. She works alongside with Dr. Helen. Um, Dr. Sawyer, could you fill in any gaps that I missed? There's so much to say.
I don't want to turn too much more and get straight on, but yeah, I guess just to echo Julianne, I'm so um, glad to be here. You know, Equal Eats Creative Nature are like two of my go-to recommended to everybody I work with. So, you know, to be alongside you here today is amazing. As Kyle said, I'm a clinical psychologist by background. Um, and over probably the last 6 years, I have become increasingly more specialist within the field of allergy, especially here in the UK. We're a bit of a rare breed. There's less, yeah, there's a handful of us, and I think that only drives me more to help and raise awareness of just the need for psychological provision within allergies, because you know flying is why we're all here today and travel, but we know that the psychological impact of living with allergies is so much more than that as well. And yeah, that's what I'm all about, raising awareness but also giving kind of real practical supportive strategies that can mean that we can all live really well with allergies.
Well, thank you so much. And we're just going to jump right into it. I'm going to stop sharing this one poll. Oh, and I did figure out how to do one more poll before I jump in. Does airline travel with food allergy make you feel anxious? I know it's a complicated question, but yes, no, not sure. There's a lot of different emotions, and maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's other. But I think this really shows us you're not alone. 88% of people on this call feel some type of anxiety with flying, and that is what we're absolutely trying to address today and give some strategies and tips to help navigate that. When looking at different facts and stats on this issue, yeah, there was a study that came out last year, not saying 98% have increased anxiety when flying. So that is incredibly high. So you're in the norm. 70% reported being assured of various allergy accommodations that they didn't actually receive by the airline. So there's a lot of inconsistency still in this field. 36% reported airline staff being insensitive about food allergies. So, you know, I wish everything was perfect in the skies, but the bottom line is that airlines have a long way to go in terms of policy, of tightening things up for us, in terms of transparency of those policies and consistency, whether they actually do it. Maybe they do it on the first leg of the trip, but they don't on the second leg. It can be a little bit hit and miss, and it really highlights the need for us as a community to stay vigilant and protect ourselves, and don't put our full trust in airlines, but to put our trust in ourselves and our gut. You know, the good news, the positive news is that reactions on airlines reportedly are pretty low, 10 to 100 times lower percentage chance than having one on the ground. A lot of that is because we are taking extra precautions. We are staying vigilant. So there's a lot of positive there, that there is risk, but it might not be as much as we think it is. So there are some positives. They're finding surface contact is the key risk. Tray tables, having a need to wipe down those surfaces on tray tables is really important. And we'll talk more about some of the other risks, some of the perceived risks that we have throughout today. So at any point, feel free to start chatting, putting your question to the chat, and we'll start to compile those and start answering them. But we do have rights. I think the number one that I want to get across is that if you do have a reaction on an airplane, even though this is quite rare, so important to speak up and get help. The studies are showing that we don't speak up all the time when we do have a reaction. We don't want to be a bother. We don't want to cause a scene. So because of that, we don't get a full data set of what does happen on airlines, and we're certainly not getting the help we need. So it is important that we do speak up. So each airline, they do set their own rules. There's not a lot of federal national laws that or guidelines that airlines are bound to. Some have pre-boarding policies. Some allow buffer zones. Some make crew announcements. It really is up to the airline, and it can change. So it's up to us to be familiar with that. And I also just wanted to note that everybody that has a food allergy, we're different too. We all have different levels of comfort. What might work for me as an allergic adult, what I'm looking for safety on an airplane might be very different for a parent of a newly diagnosed 2-year-old. And that's okay to have different preferences as well, as long as we are feeling safe. That being said, I am thrilled to introduce Julianne again, and she's going to go through some of her tips and strategies of how we can actually just be ready, prepared for flying. So take it away, Julianne.
Hi again, everyone. So yeah, my allergy journey, I guess from the beginning, as I was diagnosed at 2 years old, I don't remember my first anaphylactic reaction, but my mum tells me it was terrifying. And I always think about it from a parent's perspective to the person having allergies, as my parents were completely new, no one else in our family has allergies, and it was just a journey that they went on together. At the beginning, we as a family, we needed to travel a lot, and we had family across the world as well. So it was not an option for me not to be traveling with them. So I learned from a very young age they were going to have to take me on a plane, and they pushed me to be able to do what I do now, and that is travel the world. And I've done that through, yes, it's scary, but I've done that through preparation, through being able to understand, okay, if I was to have an allergy on board, what would that look like? What would happen? And how would I get the best possible scenario out of that? But yeah, so for my allergy journey, I want to start with some of the positives, which is I've climbed the pitons in St. Lucia and was told I'd never be able to do it. I've trekked through the jungles of Costa Rica and gone on a natural water slide, which is amazing. If anyone hasn't done that, it's definitely on your bucket list. We went in a hot air balloon over Cappadocia, wandered through the spice markets in Zanzibar, and even actually did a destination wedding, which I never thought I would be able to do. I remember my mum telling me growing up don't expect to be able to, I always had a dream of I'm going to get married abroad, and she said don't expect to do that. It's going to be very difficult with allergies. But we did it. We even did it during COVID, so I think that's pretty big achievement, and all while managing life-threatening allergies. Would you be able to go to the next slide, Kyle? So I want to talk about these biggest fears that we all have, and it's not a bad thing that we have these. I think this is something that I used to always not want to share. It's the what ifs I call, and it's the things that I think about before I get on a plane. And it's the what if I react on a plane? What if no one understands me? For example, if I'm in a different country, like when we were in Peru, and none of the crew really spoke English very well. And I found that really difficult. I was like, oh gosh, am I going to be able to convey my allergy? What if I can't read the labels? So if, for example, coming back on a flight from Dubai, they didn't have the labels in English. And what if the hospitals aren't nearby, especially when you're in the air, for example, but also when you're on the ground? How far is the nearest hospital? We went to Bali and stayed in Ubud, which is absolutely beautiful. But where we stayed, we specifically chose an area that would be close to hospitals. And I think it's that planning of understanding, okay, what's in my control? Those doubts are in my head, but how can I make myself feel a little bit better about them? What can I do to make sure I don't react on a plane? What do I need to take with me? My 2 EpiPens. All of these things, I think, don't feel bad about thinking at it. And also if you're a parent, I always find that when I speak to parents, they feel really guilty about thinking of these things. And I say to them, it's normal. Even for someone like me who's travelled, I don't know, I've been on more than 100 flights, and I still get these underlying feelings. And it's just about being able to control them and being able to help yourself get through that so that it's not a barrier for you to get on that plane, or keep you from that amazing holiday that you want to go to, or keep you from getting married or seeing family. That's what I really want to push forward, is you can do this. And with help from people like Dr. Francesca, she has amazing tips and tricks on how to manage that anxiety. And I think that's fantastic. So yeah, if we could go to the next slide, please. So I have some non-negotiables for safe travel. That's what I call them. Preparation is one of the key things. I don't tend to just jump on a plane. Sometimes I've been in a situation where we've got an amazing opportunity and I have had to go to Japan, but we've had enough time to plan and understand, okay, how am I going to do this? Carrying your 2 auto injectors, I think this is really, really important. I try to always carry more if you can, and that's only because I've been there where things have got lost. I've been there where I've accidentally put something in the wrong bag. It happens. It happens to people. Don't put them in your suitcase. Please put them in your hand luggage, because I've done that before as well and actually accidentally gone, oh yeah, you can check my bag, you can check my hand luggage. But actually my EpiPens have been in my hand luggage. This can happen so easily because at the airport, sometimes they'll say to you, oh, would you like to check in this? It was free. And it's just about thinking about that. And when you're so busy, I remember my mum had it as well when I was a kid, and she's got there's 3 of us, we're all running around causing havoc. And she's just been like, yes, just check it in, not thinking. And then gone, oh my gosh, we actually had to not get on that flight because she wasn't willing to take that risk of it not being with her. So I think these are things that you just need to think about. Medical letter from your GP. This is really important because I've actually been refused boarding before without the medical letter. It happened on one of the Asian airlines. You can also download one from the BSACI website as well. And it's really important that you just carry it with you, because sometimes they require it. Some airlines just say no if it's that severe. They always ask, is it airborne? And I always say they don't really understand what airborne allergy versus like contact is, but they always ask that question. Just get the GP letter. It will save you a lot of time and explanations at the airport. Equally is my next non-negotiable. I take this card everywhere. I also have the app on my phone though, and I didn't realize how useful the app is until I got it. And I got it for the first time in Japan. And it's only when I actually accidentally left my card with the chef, I walked out and I didn't remember it. And actually I had the app on my phone, so I was able to show the card on my phone, made it super easy, and I got my card returned anyway. But Equalite translation cards, why I say Equalite is I love the design. It's super easy to read, first of all. That's one of the main things when you're traveling abroad. You need the quickest and easiest way to convey to someone, this is your allergy and this is how serious it is. Being able to have the card physically means that they can take it away with them, or they can take a picture on their phone. And also, I cannot speak highly enough about the translation itself, because so many times people tell me, oh, well, they've just done it on Google Translate and they've got it on their phone. Trust me, there is so many times there's been confusion. I'm not sure the ins and outs of who Equally to use, but they have got specific qualified people who do all the translations, and this is so important. So definitely, and I don't get paid by Equally, so just putting that out there. I'm just very, very. I'm a big ambassador for this because I use it every day. Speak to the airline in advance. And I always say, if you can't speak to them, because I know you're on hold for sometimes 20 to 30 minutes at a time, and I've been there. If you can't, try the chat bot as well, and always take screenshots of it, because then you have something that says, for example, if they say they're going to do an announcement on board for you, you've got it in writing, and you can have that. Also print the airline policy. Everyone is different. I know it's annoying to have to print their policy, but it enables you to have, I guess, some power over, okay, I know what I am allowed to say, I know what I should be getting on board. If they say they're going to do an announcement, or if they say there's going to be a buffer zone for you, which British Airways do, you can physically say, look, this is your policy, and it becomes very much transactional that way. Rather than being confrontational, you've got a piece of paper that says everything there, and it makes it super easy for the crew. Next, when traveling, always research the nearest hospital. It's really important. You can actually get a Google Maps that you can save it. So anywhere you travel, you can save it on your phone, and then it helps other people when they ask you, oh, I've been to Madrid, where's the nearest hospitals? Here you go. Really simple, really easy. Always bring safe food. I've been in so many places where I haven't been able to eat, and you don't want that to ruin your holiday, or you don't want that to ruin your flight. So instead of relying on the airline, even though I would love to say all airlines are amazing, they're not. So try and always take something with you. I'm a big advocate for obviously our product, which we do snack bars and things, but there's lots of things that you can take on board. But be mindful of other people as well. It's not just nut allergies, it's not just dairy allergies, it's not just sesame. Try and take something on board when you're thinking about it that's inclusive to as many people as possible. It will just help people around you, and we need more kinder people in the world. And then the second thing, pack twice the meds in different bags. As I said, it's so important, because you just never know what might happen, and you never know where you might leave something. Thank you. And yeah, so flying with confidence. So from boarding to landing, I would say I'm going to take you through, I guess, what I do when I fly. So for example, I literally just flew Austrian Air, and first thing I did was contact the airline ahead. I asked them about their special meals. Their customer service was actually phenomenal. You got through within 5 minutes of being on the phone, which is unheard of really for airlines. But they do pride themselves in that. So you can talk to someone directly. You can ask what's being served on board as well. So for example, they have something called a melangerie, which EasyJet would be they're like a cafe menu. And you can ask what's being served on that, and ask them, do they have a policy if there is a product that contains nuts or contains dairy or whatever it might contain, could they not serve it for that flight? You can ask that question. And Austrian decided, because I said I have a severe nut allergy, they had a product on board that had nuts in, and they said, okay, well, we'll just not serve it for that flight. We'll just not sell it. On top of this, you can ask if there's a buffer zone. Not all airlines do that. So I have to make that really, really clear. It's only on a few at the moment, but we are pushing for more and more to have it as a brand. It's fantastic to be able to have a little buffer zone around you if there is availability where no one eats that product around you, just to give you a bit more safety on board. Another thing that I found is I've actually had an allergy when being on board. It is scary. It's something that I can't explain how it feels, but all I can say is you have to be as calm as possible. And the way to make sure that you don't have an allergy, because this is how they thought I had an allergy, was touching the screen on the back of the seats. So always when you go on board, don't feel that you can't ask to pre-board. You can pre-board, and I think it's like 60% of airlines now allow you to pre-board, either special assistance, or if you just show your medical letter, they will say, okay, you can pre-board to wipe down the seats. Also gives you a bit of a feeling of that you feel more in control when you're doing that. So wipe down all the trays, the seat belts, the window, the back of the seat, all of that. And also when you're going to the loo, just take a wipe with you anyway, so that you can just wipe down the handle, especially on a big long haul flight where there's 300 people using those facilities and walking around the plane. I always say avoid may contains on a flight. And I say this because I've had reactions to may contains. There are people that don't react to may contain, and that is their choice, whether they consume that or not. But when you're 30,000 feet, I think it's just safer to be able to have a product that is guaranteed you're going to be okay, and it makes things easier. Be discreet but firm with your communication with the crew. So try and be very clear to them on what allergies you have and where you are carrying your EpiPen. I think that's really, really important. And then eventually is your emergency plan. I always let the crew know, I have this is my EpiPen, this is where it is. And I say to them, if, for example, I was to have an allergy, these are the procedures that would be in place. Your Equal Eats card, and of course, a printed allergy action plan as well, if you can. I always just have one. I carry one in my rucksack wherever I go. And finally, I'm going to have to wrap up really quick because I'm taking too much time on this. So eating out abroad, I think it's really important. As I said, my lifeline in languages I don't speak. That's what an Equal Eats card is to me. There's also lots of other apps. We had an amazing time in Japan where we used the Hyundai glasses, where you put them on and you have an app on your phone and it translates to your ears what the person's saying. So it's super easy. I can't recommend it enough. Eat at different times to the normal. I found that was really helpful at places like Universal Studios, Disney. If you try and go when not everyone else is eating, the staff are so much more accommodating and they really help. And I found it a lot better rather than the rush where they don't have time to talk to you about your allergies. Really understanding the labeling laws. As Carl said earlier, you might fly out from the UK and have Natasha's law with all the top 14 allergens being on the label for all food. When you fly back in, that is not the case. So majority of people do not have to put those top 14 allergens on there. So be very, very careful when understanding the labeling laws. Make yourself really clear. Say, I have a food allergy, not an intolerance, unless you have an intolerance. So I think this is really, really important. And then use Facebook groups. Kyle has an amazing one. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, and that's the Allergy Travels Facebook group, and I just love it because it's community. It's just rooted in crowdsourced information. So if you're looking for info about an airline or a country, you can ask it in this group, and guaranteed someone has the experience, and it's from our community, which is great. Thank you so much, Julianne. 100 flights, you've climbed the pitons. You're inspiring, and you're making me look at some travel deals right now. But thank you very much for all the practical tips, and delighted for Dr. Francesca Sawyer to take it over now and talk a little bit more about the psychosocial side of things and anxiety and emotional. And thank you very much, Dr. Sawyer, for being with us today.
Great. So I am going to reiterate a lot of what Julianne has said because she is so, psychologically informed, I think, and just a huge advocate and a huge role model for how this is possible. So I'm just going to reinforce a lot of what she said, but with some of the psychological background behind it. So, and I guess also to acknowledge, I know from the poll at the start, lots of you have already flown, which is great. Not everybody is at that point, and if you're not there yet, that is also fine. Lots of people I talk to, that it isn't even something they want to consider right now, and that is also fine. I think this is for everybody, and this is more around just acknowledging where you're at now. I do believe that everybody can get to that place, but it is really important that we meet you where you're at now and not kind of rush through this too fast. So I'm going to start with two quotes, mantras. They are mine. They are kind of what I really promote, and that is that this is about preparedness, not perfection, and that we're aiming to get to a safe enough position where we minimize risk, but we're not removing all risk. Now, if you've not heard me speak before, I appreciate that that might even bring up anxiety, me even saying that, but hopefully by the time I've finished speaking, it will make sense as to why it is so important that we have to have this as our expectation, and actually in doing so it will reduce our anxiety. And the main reason for that is living with allergies does mean that there are many uncertainties, but that is the case for many things in life. I think that we live in a world or a society that often teaches us to be risk averse for good reason, but also that there is no room for error, that we kind of punish mistakes. And this means that for a lot of us, we have an expectation that we just have to control absolutely everything and for there to be no room for doubt, because that's the only thing that's going to make us feel in control and not anxious. But the problem is, because there are uncertainties and so many of them in the world, it doesn't matter how much we might try to prepare and how much we might try to think about all the what ifs. And when we're worrying and when we're thinking through what ifs, that's our brain's way of trying to predict what might happen and come up with a solution. But it is a real false security that we get into, because we are never going to be able to prepare for all of those uncertainties. And as Julianne said, we have to be able to strategically work out what we can control and what we can prepare for and what we can let go of. And this is where this position of being prepared but accepting that that is never going to be perfect. It can be as perfect as we will try and get it, but it's never going to be 100% perfection. And we need to aim for a position which is safe enough. And safe enough, just to be crystal clear, is a position where you are safe. You've minimized the risks. You've put your effort into what you can control, but it's recognizing that there will always be risks. And there's a risk to me sat here right now. I'm, fairly confident that the risk is pretty low, but I don't know that something can come crashing through the front of my house right now. But I'm not going to think about that, because, my risk assessment is that that is low and there is nothing that I can do to control that. So it's not something that I think about. So if we move on, but let's just acknowledge why flying feels so anxiety provoking. And as Kyle said at the start, it's completely normal to feel anxious, and that is because with flying comes a lack of control, especially if you've grown up with allergies or allergies in your family. You will have become the expert at making your home environment very controlled and very safe, and that feeling like your bubble. And as soon as we start to contemplate going outside of that, you are giving up some of that control. As I said, I do believe that we can do that in a safe enough way, but there has to be that acknowledgement that it is never going to be that bubble of home, because of the uncertainties, because of the other passengers, because that there is food being served, the cabin environment. There are certain things that are not within your control, and with that uncertainty, as I said, comes that anxiety. And as Julianne said, the fear of reactions, the fear of not being able to get help. Often something people tell me is also that feeling of being trapped on a plane. I think, lots of people would feel anxious about flying anyway, but then if we add allergies into the mix, this is only going to perpetuate anxiety. So let's just kind of normalize why we're feeling this. And the next slide is just going to say, I guess, what this anxiety can then lead on to, because the aim of anxiety is to alert us. It's essentially, the way I describe it, it's like a mini fire alarm in our head. We have a fire alarm in our house to warn us if there is a fire and if there is a danger, and its job, if there is a fire, is to be very loud, very irritating, and to get us out of that dangerous situation. That is what anxiety is, but for our brain. It's designed to alert us to a danger and to get us out of the way of that danger. But the problem is it can become a little bit inefficient and a little bit oversensitive. And all of those what ifs and all of those uncertainties are actually interpreted by our brain as being a danger when they're not. they're something that we need to minimize risk, but in that moment right now they're not a danger, but our brain is treating it as though it is, and that's why we get anxiety. And when we get anxiety, can lead to shutdown. It can lead to shutdown in our ability to think rationally, um, in our ability to think through situations in a more logical way, because, all our brain is thinking is, I need to get out of this. And that's where it's putting its energy. So we lose some of that higher level thinking that we really need to be online, especially when we are traveling or when we are flying. It also blocks that effective communication. And again, none of this is around blame. It's just acknowledging that this is what can happen. That ability to be assertive, but do that in a way that's going to be effective with your airline crew, because we can often see communication going to one of the extremes, either completely passive and just not being able to communicate, or perhaps being at that other end of the spectrum and perhaps being a little bit too aggressive or too, almost passionate in a way which you don't get your needs met. And what we actually want is a really effective, assertive communication where things are explained very clearly, very precisely, in a way that, gets your needs completely met, but that is going to be heard and is going to be respected and going to help you work in tandem and with a team, with the people who you need to help you. Anxiety can also make us jump to scenarios that are not happening. Those what ifs, all of those scenarios that our brain jump to, they are not happening. They're future things that might maybe happen, but they're also very likely not to. But our brain goes to that place. It goes to a future place that is not now. And it forgets that actually, like right now, I'm okay. Right now, all that's happening is this, and this is what I need to do. It removes us from that present moment, and we need to be in the present moment if we are going to travel safely and if we want to manage our anxiety better. And it reduces some of that problem solving. And again, as Julianne nicely highlighted with lots of lovely examples, sometimes things do go, I'm going to say wrong and in quotation marks, they're not things that can't be resolved, but that things might not go completely to that plan. And, in those situations, we need to be able to problem solve and work our way through them. So this is why we need to help manage our anxiety better. So in the build up before the flight, I believe that in managing anxiety, we need to kind of treat it in two different ways. How we're going to support it in the whole build up to that flight, because if it's not effectively managed, you'll either put it off and off and off, and then it will suddenly flood you just before the flight, and then potentially mean that you can't get on it because you're suddenly flooded with that anxiety. Or you overthink it too much and talk yourself out of it. So we need to engage in strategies both before and then the during. So again, before, reiterating a lot of what's already said, but it's building up to this, as I said at the start, that some people might not be in a position where they're even contemplating getting on a flight. But it's about increasing the confidence that you can leave that safe space of home. So for lots of people, lots of families that I'm working with to go on that first family holiday, we're gradually working up to that. It might be that we're doing a night away from home. It might be that that's increasing to a couple of days away from home. It might be that we're increasing that distance away from home and experimenting with different places that you might stay, so you can start to build up some of these skills in different environments. Then it might be moving towards going abroad, but using kind of train or boat as your preferred method of travel, and then moving up to short haul and long haul. So yeah, it might be that we need to actually gradually build up to it. It's a lot of it is going to be preparing and recognizing that safe enough, kind of removing this expectation that you're going to be able to control absolutely everything, but instead strategically focusing on the practical things that you can control and letting go of some of the stuff that you can't. You're far better off putting your efforts into that, the stuff that you can manage ahead of time, rather than worrying about potential what ifs that you have no control over, such as what the person behind you on the plane might think or do. We can also develop a psychological preparedness toolbox, as I like to call it. So that might be things like something called worry sorting, which is recognizing when a worry comes in and being able to talk yourself through that. Is that something I need to worry about? Most of the things we don't need to worry about, by the way, and I often ask the first question is worrying solving this? Is worrying actually the thing that's going to change this? And most of the time it's not. Actually, what will change a situation is doing something practical or recognizing that there's nothing you can do and letting that go. But we sort those things into things that we can do something about and some things that we can't, and letting go of those that we can't. Lots of the time, it can also be about breaking things down. You know, somebody once said to me, I used to get a lot of anxiety as a teenager, Francesca, you can do anything for a minute. And that really stuck with me because we can do anything for a minute. And actually, if we can do something for a minute, we get through that minute and then we go on to that next minute. And that's a really good strategy for taking you out of that future thinking and catastrophizing and this space that is not now. And you can, like, right now, this is what I'm doing. You know, even right now, I'm doing this slide and this is the slide that I'm focusing on, and then I'll worry about the next slides when I get to those. I do a lot of running, and when I'm always running or a race, I focus on the mile that I'm in. There's no point running the mile that I'm not in yet. You focus on that bit by bit, and that is a very effective tool that you can use in the build up to anything. It's just taking everything step by step and living in that moment that you're in. And any strategy which is going to ground you back to now is going to be really important for you because you're living your life right now. And right now in this moment, everything is okay. And if you remind your body of that you are okay, then your body starts to come out of this threat. It starts to remind your brain, actually, I'm not in a danger right now, and right now I'm okay. So it starts to dial down that anxiety, and you can start to think a little bit more rationally and clearly, and then you can start to proactively engage in those things that are going to be helpful for you. And there's lots of other things we can do. I know a lot of people find visualization very helpful, and various different breathing techniques. I could talk at long wind about that, but just to let you know that there are lots of things that you can do to manage your anxiety before a flight. Next slide. I'm just going to very quickly talk about the anxiety cycle before then finishing on what you can do during a flight. Because I think a lot of people think of anxiety as a feeling, and it's just something that is experienced and something that's very overwhelming, which it is, and it's designed to be because it's our body's alarm. It's meant to be loud. It's meant to grab our attention. But actually, anxiety is a cycle, and if we understand it as a cycle, then we can change things in the cycle to help reduce that anxiety. So usually there's something that's triggered that anxiety. So it might be a particular thought that you've had. More often than not, it might be a particular situation you find yourself in that's sparked up that feeling, that set off that alarm. And then that leads to a series of thoughts. Again, lots of these are the ones that Julianne mentioned. I'm not safe. This is dangerous. I'm having a reaction. What if I have a reaction? And all of those thoughts are only going to magnify that anxiety and ramp it up more. And the more anxious we are, we know that that thinking becomes even more illogical. So those thoughts will intensify in both severity, but also the amount of thoughts that we're having that are anxiety dominated rather than a more wider spectrum of thoughts that we need. When we're anxious, our body wants to stop that feeling as quickly as possible. So what it engages is in something that are called safety behaviors. These are the things it does to make that anxiety go away, to get you out of that situation. So I'm not talking about the actual behaviors that are risk management and safe behaviors you need to do for allergy management. Those are the ones we want to do more of. But safety behaviors are the ones that are less helpful. So, for example, actively looking for danger. You know, I always say that if there's something there, our brain, we know that it's there. We don't need to go out looking for it, because if we're looking for it, we will find it. And the more we look, the more we'll notice other things that are actually going to intensify our anxiety. We develop a hypervigilance. So this is our putting ourselves on edge, noticing what might be going on in our body. We might self-monitor more. We might notice things going on in our body, but because we're anxious, there will be little things going on in our body. And that's not just because we're anxious, it's not a sign that we're in danger. But if we start to pay attention to that, our brain will start to misinterpret that as other things. That rumination, that going over and over and over something, is often something that we think, oh, but if I just plan for all of these, and if I just think through that situation, if I just think that situation one more time, then I'll know I'm okay. But it actually intensifies our anxiety. And also, often something I see is rituals or particular routines that help to make people feel safe. And all of this stuff does short term reduce anxiety, but longer term is what keeps it going. So being aware of this then helps us to break this cycle. It's not about, changing your thought to like, oh, this is the safest place I've ever been in my life, because of course that is also not helpful and also not true. But being more balanced and realistic and knowing that you are safe enough and knowing that you've followed your own plan and knowing that there are people that can help you and knowing that you've got skills to manage, all of that is more realistic than this is dangerous and the worst case thing is going to happen. So that's what I mean by breaking this cycle. And then just to end then, because I'm also aware of time, it's just a few things that you can do in the flight to help your anxiety. So the nudge, I actually, again, I stole this from Julianne. I was listening to her talk earlier in the year and I was like, I love that. So something that she mentioned was around having your medication, in your bag on your tray table in front of you. And I think what that is that's that nudge. It's a psychological nudge to those around you to remind them that you have allergies. I think, often we see on social media, which is really not helpful, the people that might roll their eyes in response to an announcement. And, it makes us think that people are unkind and judgmental, when actually, firstly, that's the minority of people, not the majority. And secondly, it's very easy to do that when somebody is an invisible person and they're not human to you. It's just a name on an announcement. But if you're suddenly the person sat next to the person with an allergy, or you're in the vicinity and you can see that person, you can see that medication, it's a lot harder for you then to, roll your eyes and not be respectful. So I think that's a really good way of just nudging somebody's behavior and influencing them without getting into a confrontation and without even needing to say a word. It's recognizing that your anxiety will come in waves. It is going to come and it will go and it will come up, and it's literally like riding a wave. And just because it's increased doesn't mean the danger is increasing. It just means that that's your anxiety doing its thing, and it will come and it will go and it will come up a bit more and it will go. And it's learning to ride that but not react to that. And that's why it's really helpful to name the feeling, not the fear. I'm feeling anxious, not my worst case fear is about to happen, because the feeling doesn't mean that you're in danger. Interrupt some of those safety behaviors, rather than just looking out for danger, trying to scan to see what everybody else is doing. Try and read a book, listen to music, name other things that you can see that are evidence that of the opposite. So try and interrupt some of those behaviors. And remember that flying is a skill set. It's not something that some people have and some people don't. It's not something that you're never going to be able to do. I do believe that it can be learned if we can manage anxiety, if we can put these things in place, if we can, build up to it gradually. It's something that you can do. And yeah, I really believe that. So I'm going to stop there. But yeah, you can also find me on social media if you want to connect.
Yeah, I have to
On a
say,
bit more of my work.
one of the most helpful Instagram accounts. There's a lot of fluff. Yours is really helpful in just addressing all of these constantly in my feed. So thank you very much for all the work that you put in for our community, and thank you for all the tips today. We have a couple questions that have already come in, but it is the 10-minute quick fire. We're going to get as many questions answered as possible. So feel free, after everything you've heard today, there's something that we haven't covered, put it in the chat and we'll try to address. We have a great question starting out from Angelica, who has contacted, I believe it's British Airways, a few times before flying. And all the times when I reach the airport, the staff doesn't find the records, the info about the allergies. So I feel I wasted my time, that there is not a consistent transfer of this passenger information. Is there any advice on this?
Would you like me to take it, or Dr. Francesca? Or...
I say that might be one for you because you're quite
Okay, yeah,
Good with
yeah, more
knowing some of
amazing
those airlines a
tips.
bit better than me.
Yeah, in terms of British Airways, I would say so. What I found really useful is when you call up, try and get a reference number and make sure they actually update it on your booking while you're speaking to them. So you'll also be able to log into your usually if you book direct with British Airways, you'll be able to log into the system and they'll sometimes put SA on your booking, and that means special assistance. They do it on EasyJet as well. So if you're having that problem, maybe just try and get that reference and try and get them to do it on the phone. If you can't, honestly, try the chat bots. I know it doesn't feel like you're speaking to a human, but you've got physical proof then that they've said they will tell the staff or the crew or whoever that is. So, but please do contact me afterwards, and maybe you can show me some things that you've had problems with, and I'll try and help you the best I can.
I also think it's important to keep in mind this point that you really can't expect consistency at this point in time with airlines. They're just not there to say that they're going to do something and then follow up 100% of the time. So it is important that we're just trusting ourselves and still bringing it up, not only on the booking, but at the gate, on the flight, and making sure that that person is aware.
Yeah, Carl, it's really good because I don't feel that you waste your time at all, like explaining to the gate or explaining to the crew. Like, actually, you're then touching so many other people in the airline, and we need as many advocates as possible
Yeah.
because then they will do something about it.
Great attitude.
Yeah. And I was just going to add, I was like, make it shared. I mean, it can be easy in that situation. You turn up and somebody doesn't know, just to feel like really let down, really angry. And it's remembering that it's not that particular person's point. Like, yes, we're talking to a wider issue about consistency, but it's just if in that moment you can think, okay, right, this person doesn't know. How do I want them to help me? If you say, oh, okay, well, this is the situation. How are we going to work through this? What do you need from me? What can you do for me? You suddenly make that a shared thing. You're not putting it all on them. You're going through, you're showing them your plan, all of the things that you can do, and then you're, giving them suggestions and asking them to help you. And I think that if we can go in with that more collaborative, and I'm not saying this is ideal, but I just say that this is a kind of way that you can manage it, then I generally find that people at that point will be more willing to help.
Work with them. I love it. A great question here from Andrea. I feel like I have the opposite problem. My peanut allergic daughter is nearly 16, so increasingly out of my sphere of protection and control. I worry she's not anxious enough or more too embarrassed about it. Any advice for parents with teens growing in independence? I
Mm,
would love to just chime in on this one because I was that teen. I was that guy
yeah.
who wanted to not be known for my allergies at all. And I would also then flip this over a bit in that the way that my parents managed my allergies was not exactly the way I wanted to manage my allergies. And it didn't necessarily mean I was being not careful. But I just wanted to be different. So, with my parents asking about shared fryers, let's say at a restaurant, and then they didn't hear me asking about that. For instance, in that case, I just didn't order food that would even come close to a fryer. I just limited my food choices instead to avoid that. So there's different strategies. And I would say that's a great starting point with your teen is what are they doing? What are their comfort level? And at that point, starting to address. And I think at the end of the day, we teach our kids so much, and it is ingrained in them. It is in their gut of what is right and what is wrong with risk and allergy. But they will be more cavalier. That is what teens do. But as long as they have those non-negotiables, the epinephrine with them all times, they're going to be okay. Um, we'll move on. There's a question from Gail. I generally fly Southwest, and the company has never carried gluten-free food. Besides bringing my own food, is there anything I can do? I wonder if airlines hear enough, and maybe Julianne, you can pipe in here about the alternative options that are out there for snacks and foods and what we can do as a group to demand more safe options in the skies. Is there more that we can do as consumers?
Which question was that? Sorry.
Karina posted one. It was from Gail. Um, just an
So
airline.
bringing on food. So you can bring your own food, which you've said, but there are so many airlines trying to do better. I'm not sure if you've seen the latest from Japan Airways, they are doing a 28 allergen-free meal on board, which is really exciting, because they adhere to 28 allergens, whereas we adhere to 14 in the UK. So there are things happening. I would say though, in terms of bringing your own food, you can bring also a lot of packaged food, and I always recommend doing that in particular because then you've got multiple things throughout the flight. But yeah, other than bringing your own food, I'm not sure what else. There's lots of different food companies that I can recommend to bring, other than Creative Nature, of course. But yeah, I wouldn't say I would. What else you can do to add food?
Thank you. We're almost at the end, so we'll just do a couple really, really quick ones. One question from Michelle, son is 15. Considering the recent advice that it's unlikely for people to react to airborne particles on a plane and more to contact, it would seem we don't need to worry as much about wearing a mask, being in the air, as to being more alert to wipe things down. The research is consistently showing that contact is the risk, and that airborne particles with the HEPA filters that are on airlines, the risk is incredibly minimal, especially for nut and peanut, for that dust, for those particles to actually become aerosolized to the point of reaction, that this risk is very, very minimal. And that's what the research is saying. Obviously, it varies from allergen to allergen. With seafood and steam from shellfish, there is a difference in those proteins that are becoming aerosolized. But yes, the main concern is wiping down in contact, where it gets on our hands and it gets into our system through other channels. Francesca, I bet you would probably get a lot of these type of questions at your clinic.
Yeah, I do. Because if I'm thinking with somebody about like risk minimization, I would exactly be the same. You know, it's about that wiping down, it's the stickiness of the particles that is the transmission device rather than through the air. So that would be what I'd primarily be focusing on. You know, if we think about the cycle I was talking about, I have, you know, clients will often talk to me, they were like, you know, is the idea of a mask, is that, you know, a safety behavior? And you know, it's tricky because I think probably it is. It's a comfort. It's a reassurance. It's probably something that's not adding a lot. However, and this is a big however, I'm not just going to take out everybody's safety behavior. If the way that you can fly is by wearing a mask, like wear a mask. You know, I think the priority is being able to do that and feel safe enough on that flight. So I think to a certain extent, it is about picking your battles. So you know, it certainly wouldn't be the first thing I would, you know, remove. My priority would be more on the other things and getting you on that flight and getting you to that destination where you can have lots of fun and like, you know, live your life and, you know, start to open up these opportunities. But yes, if longer term, you know, that's a discomfort or it's actually not something you want to wear, I think you know, you could certainly look to reduce that and maybe trial it on a short haul first or, you know, for half the flight.
And I would ask Karina if you could do a favor and post some of the studies that we have prepared, because I think just to end off today, some of the work that's been done to find out risk and risk mitigation and best practices, this has been studied and studied, and there's some really fantastic things out there. And what gives me a lot of self-help is just knowing these type of facts based on numbers and knowledge and data, and it has helped my anxiety get very, very low when flying, because I know the risk is quite low and I know what the real risks are based on that. So there's a couple great studies. I just urge everyone, just take a peek. So to wrap up here, there's more resources. I really, really appreciate our rock star panel, Dr. Sawyer and Julianne, for coming today. We have a travel checklist that Karina can put in the chat as well, that can help you make sure that you've actually checked off all of these things beforehand to make sure you're setting yourself up for success. But lastly, before we end off here, why do we fly? We focused a lot on anxiety and risk mitigation, but why do we put up with all this? Why is it worth it to get up in the skies and go from one spot to another? Karina, we'll start with you. Why do you love to fly? I know that you have children with food allergy.
That's right. So I fly with my son because being able to open up the world to him and give him these experiences, it really means absolutely everything to me. So personally, before I had my son, I traveled to 27 different countries and lived abroad 3 times. And I want my son to be able to experience that as well. And it really helps build his confidence and his independence. And of course, we make really special family memories, like the four of us. And every time we go abroad, we've got those memories forever, and it's just such a special time. So it's definitely worth it for us.
Nice. Julianne, why do you fly?
I fly because of experience. For me, there's nothing better than being able to like see new things, new cultures, and being able to take that back. Like I always speak to people that are older than me, and they always say to me, the regret they have is not seeing as many things, because you can't take things with you. You can't take a new iPhone, but what you can take is a memory, an experience, and that anxiety of flying, I get it, I have it, I live it, but as soon as I get to see Niagara Falls or experienced with my other half or my friends, like the pitons, all of that just goes away. And I just encourage you, and I understand like some people are not there yet, but each little baby step, just take a baby step and take it with Francesca, because Dr. Francesca will get you through it, and she will help you become able to travel the world, and you won't regret it.
Great. Dr. Francesca, why do you fly?
Oh, just all of the above. I mean, for me, there are just so many wonderful places in the world. Like, I often say to my partner, I'm not a tree. I'm not meant to be in one place all of the time. There are so many places I want to see, do, experience. I mean, I love my job. I do love my job, but the other thing that gets me through life is knowing that I can go and see things and experience things. And, there literally is a world out there. And, if that's something you want, I don't think anybody should be restricted from being able to see it.
That's great. And for me, I'm a people person, so I'm not much of a text guy. Phone calls are okay, but I love face to face, and I wish we were all together today to have this conversation at a table with all of you, our audience. So that gets me up and going just to connect with people. So we really do appreciate everyone coming here today. I will just put out one final poll very, very quickly, just so we know, was this helpful today? How do you feel about airline travel after this webinar? Are you feeling a little bit more confident, same, or less confident? All right. Well, we have about 71% more confident, fantastic, 29% same. We're always looking for feedback. We're happy to do these webinars every single month, Q&A. So if you have any feedback, what more we can do, what other topics, get in touch, Kyle@equaleats.com. I'd love to hear from you. Appreciate you all coming today. Thank you for being courageous and tackling this topic, Dr. Francesca Sawyer, Julianne. And next month we have a really, really special Q&A. We're going to be live, Karina and I, from European Christmas markets, navigating the stands, the stalls, a little bit of hot wine, a little bit of food if we can find some that's safe. So it's going to be a really, really unique one with a lot of blinking lights. So hope to see you then. Thank you, Dr. Francesca Sawyer. Thank you, Julianne, for your time today. Thank you, Karina, and all of you. Safe travels. Bon voyage.